Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different, a philosophical expedition, you could say. We're going to chart how conflict has evolved from, the basic physical things, a sword, an arrow, a shield, into these really complex, abstract battles, fought with economics, information, even ideology. If you still picture conflict as just, well, tanks on a battlefield, we really need to bring you up to speed on how a 21st century engagement actually works.
Yeah, exactly. And our mission here really is to give you a shortcut, a way to understand the hidden rules, almost the mathematics, that govern modern clashes, both geopolitical and social. We're diving into a unified philosophy that maps this whole evolution. It spans 7 tiers, moving from simple actions to this complex multi-domain system. It's all about synthesis and abstraction.
And what's really striking is how universal this framework claims to be. I mean, how can one philosophy connect a medieval sword
Yeah.
with something like a targeted social media campaign? We're essentially tracing this evolutionary ladder of conflict all the way up.
Right. And to climb that ladder, we have to start at the bottom. Tier 0, the 0 point. This is where all hostile action begins. It doesn't matter if you're using a tank or a tweet, fundamentally. You're combining 3 basic modes of action. These are the elemental building blocks.
Okay, so 3 foundational axioms. These are the absolute bedrock for everything else that follows. Let's break those down. What are the basics of hostile engagement?
Okay, so these 3 components, they get synthesized, combined in all the later tiers. First, you have the sword. Think direct lethality, close range, immediate damage, point of contact.
Got it. The direct hit.
Second, the arrow. That's your indirect range. It puts distance and time between the attacker and the target.
Separation. Makes sense.
And third, the shield. Defense, protection, deterrence. It's how you absorb or block hostile action. Could be armor, could be a bunker, could be something else entirely.
Sword, arrow, shield. Okay, so let's see the first step up the ladder, the first big technological jump where they start to combine. We hit tier 1, right? Personal synthesis.
Exactly. Tier 1 is the gun. And the gun is, well, it's kind of the perfect marriage of those 3 axioms, but at the individual scale. It merges the sword's lethality, the bullet, with the arrow's range, obvious enough. But here's the key part. It also includes the shield.
Wait, hang on. Lethality, yes. Range, yes. But how is a gun a shield? A shield protects you. A gun attacks.
But it creates protection through its offensive capability. Think about it. The ability to fire rapidly, a high volume of shots. It creates a defensive zone, a sort of wall of lead. It denies the enemy access to that area. So it functions as a personal shield for area denial. That's the first really powerful synthesis of all 3 tier 0 elements.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. It's not just the object. It's the deterrent effect it enables.
Yeah.
The threat. So we take that idea synthesis for area denial and scale it up. That brings us to tier 2.
Tier 2, crew scale synthesis, artillery. Now, this isn't just a bigger gun for one person, it's a structural weapon designed to hit groups, fortifications. Its sword component targets larger things, and its shield component, that area denial capability. Now you're measuring it in acres, protecting a whole position, maybe a base.
Right. Bigger scale, same principle. And then we add another dimension, mobility, specifically air power. That gets us to tier 3, impersonal synthesis.
That's the bomb delivered from the air. This is where the arrow, the indirect part, really gets perfected. By adding that third dimension, that mobility, the attack gets totally detached from the front line. It becomes impersonal, highly effective, often because the attacker is, well, unseen, unreachable by the target at that moment.
Okay. And tier 4 then builds on that impersonality by adding logic, autonomy, the sort of fire and forget era.
Tier 4, the missile. That's the automated synthesis. It's the arrow component again, but perfected through automation and precision. The human is removed from the immediate delivery process. It becomes almost a purely logical act. And that automation hugely increases the certainty of hitting the target.
Which brings us, through this technological race, to the absolute peak of physical weaponry, tier 5, the nuke, the existential synthesis. And this is where the philosophy hits a kind of paradox, doesn't it?
It really does. The nuke is the apex predator of physical conflict. It's the ultimate sword, capable of just annihilation. But because it's so unbelievably lethal, its actual use becomes almost unthinkable. It creates this massive paradox. Its whole purpose shifts.
So it stops being a practical sword
Yeah.
and instead becomes the ultimate shield.
Exactly. Its mere existence creates mutually assured destruction, MAD. That makes it the most powerful deterrent imaginable, the ultimate shield. And that's the endpoint, the paradoxical conclusion of purely physical warfare. Conflict can't physically escalate beyond this point without, well, destroying everyone involved, so it's forced to find a new place to happen.
So, okay, if the nuke means large-scale physical war is basically mutual suicide, does conflict just stop? Or does it, like, change channels, move somewhere else?
It transcends. It absolutely transcends. Conflict didn't end, it just relocated. Tier 6 is the abstract synthesis, abstract war. It essentially takes the nuke's logic, that deterrent shield and the missile's precision arrow, and applies them to everything non-physical. Economics, infrastructure, information systems, social ideologies.
That's fascinating. So the nuke's terrifying power actually created the space for this abstract shift, sort of forced conflict into a new domain by making the old one too dangerous.
Precisely. And the absolute core function, the key tactic of abstract war is obfuscation.
Yeah.
The aim is to cripple a nation's economy or tear apart its society while maintaining plausible deniability. This is what the philosophy calls the open gate, a way to achieve destructive ends, a negative moral vector while claiming innocence. You could be waging total war and say, oh, we were just running a marketing campaign.
Right, and you mentioned social physics before. This is where the target isn't land or resources anymore, but society's cohesion itself. What exactly are these abstract war actors trying to manipulate?
They're looking for the weak points, the fault lines to apply social strain. That's the arrow axiom operating in this abstract space. They want to widen those cracks to achieve societal fracture. That's the sword axiom here. The strategic goal is to break the system from within. But the ultimate target, the real prize they're after, is social cohesion.
Which is the shield in this domain, the society's collective defense.
Exactly right. Social cohesion is the shield. And if they can destroy the fundamental bonds of trust, which the philosophy sees as the basic particle, the gate that allows cohesion, then the society becomes ungovernable. It can't act collectively, it can't defend itself. And that's why abstract war is so insidious. The attack is often invisible until the damage, the fracture, is already done.
Okay, this paints a pretty bleak picture. But it also sets up the need for a counter, right? A way to fight back against this invisible warfare. It must involve exposing it, destroying that obfuscation.
Yeah.
This sounds like the leap to Tier 7.
Tier 7 is the transcendent synthesis. The philosophy calls it truth warfare. And the equation is simple. Truth warfare equal abstract war multiplied by Alatheia.
Alatheia, I know that's an ancient Greek word, often translated as unconcealment or truth, something like that. So Tier 7 is literally about making the invisible war visible.
It's the systemic weaponization of verifiable reality. That's the core idea. Truth warfare basically takes the precision of the missile using fact-backed, verifiable truth and combines it with the existential weight, the sheer impact of the nuke. It hits with that same kind of devastating certainty. But it's not destroying people or cities. It's destroying the lie that the abstract war attack relies on.
So it functions both defensively and offensively. How does it work as both the ultimate shield and sword in this context?
Well, as the shield, it's about societal inoculation. If you foster critical thinking, provide access to objective reality, you make the population resistant. The harmful narratives of abstract war just don't find fertile ground. And as the sword, it demolishes the attacker's plausible deniability. Abstract war needs obfuscation to work. Objective truth shines a light on it, exposes the game, and instantly destroys the attacker's leverage. It wins by revealing the hidden battlefield.
The source material even uses this sort of particle physics analogy for it all, defining the materials of deception versus truth. Can you unpack those terms? Ledon and truthonium, they sound very conceptual.
They are conceptual, but rooted in logic. So the destructive actor, the one aiming to diminish or destroy, called the minimizer, relies on these finite changeable particles called Leron. Think of it as deception, propaganda, fake news. It only has power as long as people believe the lie, like counterfeit money.
And the source says Leron corrodes quickly under a bright enough light.
Exactly. It can't withstand scrutiny. It falls apart when exposed to objective reality. Now, the constructive actor, the maximizer, who's pursuing the greater good, uses truthonium, that's Alatheia, objective reality. Truthonium is described as immutable, unchanging, and infinite. It's just what is. And the philosophy states, quite dramatically, that truthonium melts the face of any system built on Leron because a system based on lies fundamentally cannot survive contact with objective truth.
Wow, that's quite a journey we've traced. From, as you said, 3 simple physical actions, a swing, a shot, a block, all the way to this philosophical battlefield where the ultimate weapon turns out to be verifiable reality itself.
And this whole unified philosophy, this framework, it exists for one core purpose, Alatheia, unconcealment. The entire structure, especially when quantified using things like the hostility equivalence metric, or HEM, it's all designed to expose the true systemic cost of any conflict. It forces actors, whether they like it or not, to face the reality that they are always waging an expensive war, even in so-called peacetime, even when they think it's cheap or deniable.
And this is where the numbers become really critical, isn't it? Because the sheer economic inefficiency of physical conflict is presented as the final logical proof. The source uses the value of a statistical life, the VSL estimated around 10 million US dollars in lost economic potential, to put a price tag on the human cost.
That VSL figure is crucial. It shifts the argument. It turns war from solely a moral debate into an accounting problem, a question of efficiency. We're using basic economics to demonstrate the logical failure inherent in conflict. Let's take the absolute best-case scenario for an attacker, the perfect physical war.
Right, the impossible dream scenario. You inflict 100 enemy casualties and suffer 0 friendly losses, a flawless victory on paper. What does the heed tell us about the actual cost of that win?
Even in that fantasy situation, where the $1 billion in VSL loss, 100 lives x $10 million, is inflicted entirely on the other side, you still have to account for the attacker's own costs. The absolute minimum expenditure. Bullets, fuel, equipment wear and tear, logistics, training, maintaining the infrastructure just to be able to achieve that kill ratio. It all adds up. When you factor in the attacker's unavoidable minimum expenses on top of the enemy VSL loss, the global system still suffers a minimum net loss calculated at over $1.061 billion.
Over $1 billion lost, even for supposedly perfect one-sided physical victory. That's staggering. It's an objectively terrible return on investment, no matter how you slice it.
It proves mathematically that conflict is fundamentally the least efficient way to achieve any strategic goal. Always. The very existence of that undeniable systemic loss forces the conclusion. Tier 7, truth warfare pursuing the greater good, the plus upsilon vector, through Alatheia, through unconcealment, isn't just morally preferable, it's the only truly logical and efficient path forward.
The numbers themselves demand peace, or at least a move away from costly conflict. So what this entire framework really tells us then is that every single hostile act, whether it's a physical strike or a carefully crafted piece of disinformation, it all has a real measurable cost. And that cost, sooner or later, has to be paid. So the question I suppose you should be asking yourself is, are you prepared for the systemic cost of the abstract wars happening all around you right now? And maybe more importantly, what's your personal investment in building that ultimate shield truthonium? Verifiable reality. Something to think about.